Paper ticket had already softened at the corners from her thumb. Asha kept rubbing the edge anyway, as if she could wear it down into something else. Something less real. The train rocked in a patient, indifferent rhythm, and the compartment smelled faintly of metal, dust, and yesterday's heat trapped in upholstery. Across from her, a family was trying to keep a toddler from climbing onto the window ledge. Someone laughed under their breath. Somewhere farther down the carriage, a vendor called out in a sing-song voice. She didn't answer. The world kept going with an ease that felt almost insulting. Asha stared at the window until her reflection became clearer than the landscape. The glass gave her a version of herself that looked composed. Chin lifted, mouth calm, eyes forward. It wasn't the version that had left a note on a kitchen counter at 3 a.m. Her phone sat dark in her bag. Not dead. She'd turned it off. The thought returned, as it had been returning since the taxi door shut behind her at the station. I wasn't supposed to be here. She let it circle. Let it land and lift again. A man in a railway uniform appeared at the threshold of the compartment with the practiced solemnity of someone whose job was to make the temporary feel regulated. He moved down the row, checking tickets without looking at faces for longer than necessary. When he reached Asha, she handed hers over immediately, too quickly, as if politeness could disguise panic. He glanced down, punched a small mark, and handed it back. Then he looked at the seat beside her. The woman there, tall, pale in a way that didn't belong to the light in this carriage, hair pulled into a loose knot that was already surrendering to humidity, was watching the aisle with the calm of someone used to airports and departures. She had a backpack tucked between her ankles and an open paperback on her lap that she wasn't reading. She offered her ticket with a small, almost apologetic smile. The railway worker read it aloud, the names falling out of his mouth like an accident. Asha. His gaze flicked to Asha, brief, confirming. And Ashley. The sound of it, so close, so foolishly similar, hit the air between them and did something unexpected. Something light. Ashley's mouth twitched first. Asha tried to hold her face still and failed. A laugh broke out of her, quiet but uncontained, and Ashley's laugh met it like recognition. It wasn't a grand thing. It didn't change the train's rhythm or slow the wheels. But Asha felt it in her chest anyway, the small rearrangement of breath. Ashley leaned back slightly, eyes bright. Okay, she said, in a low voice meant only for Asha. That's ridiculous. Asha kept rubbing the ticket edge, even as she smiled. It is, she managed. Her voice sounded a little rough, as if she hadn't used it for hours. I didn't expect. No, Ashley agreed, and there was a softness in the way she said it. Not pity. Something closer to amusement at the universe. Neither. The railway worker moved on, already forgetting them. But the moment stayed. It hung there like a scent. Asha could have looked away then. Could have put her gaze back on the window and let the world slide past as planned. Instead, she found herself turning slightly toward the stranger beside her, as if her body had decided first. Ashley's profile was clean and careful, nose straight, lips full in a way that made Asha think of ripe fruit and then immediately hate herself for thinking that. There was a freckle near the corner of Ashley's mouth, faint enough that Asha wasn't sure if she'd imagined it. Ashley glanced down at Asha's ticket, still in her hand. So, she said. Asha. Asha nodded once, as if confirming her own existence. And Ashley. They shared another quiet smile, and the intimacy of it startled her. Strangers weren't supposed to feel this close over something so small. What are the odds? Ashley murmured. Asha shrugged, but the movement felt hollow. Odds implied choice. Calculation. Some kind of plan. She didn't believe in plans right now. Ashley's gaze moved to Asha's hands. The ticket, the thumb worrying the paper. Asha became aware of the gesture as if it were being narrated aloud. She stopped, then started again without meaning to. Ashley didn't ask the obvious questions. Where are you going? Why are you here? How long? Who's waiting? Instead, she said, this train has a mood. Asha exhaled, relieved by the lack of interrogation. Yes. It's like everyone is trying not to touch anyone, Ashley said, eyes roaming the compartment. Families pressed together, strangers politely separated by inches that pretended to be boundaries. But the air is making us all share the same skin. Asha's laugh this time was quieter. Almost a breath. That's a very dramatic way to describe humidity. Ashley smiled. I'm an engineer, she said, like it was a confession. But I'm still dramatic about weather. Asha turned her head fully now. What kind of engineer? Biomedical, Ashley said. Just finished. Stanford. The words landed so neatly they didn't feel real at first. Asha blinked. Her thumb froze against the ticket. Stanford, she repeated. Ashley's eyebrows rose. Please don't tell me. Asha swallowed. Something like disbelief climbed up her throat. Stanford, she said again, and it sounded different coming from her mouth, less like a brand, more like a doorway she'd walked through and not come back from intact. Ashley's smile widened slowly, as if she could see the shape of the coincidence forming. No way. Asha let her breath out, a little shaky. Computer science, she said. Also, just finished. For a second, Ashley stared at her, open and unguarded. Then she shook her head, a soft laugh escaping. Okay. That's too much. Asha wanted to laugh too. Instead, she felt a sudden sharp ache behind her ribs, as if Stanford had been a country she'd fled, and now someone had spoken its name in the middle of nowhere. The train's motion seemed to tilt, briefly. She steadied herself by pressing her fingers harder into the ticket paper. Ashley looked at her more carefully then. The bright coincidence dimmed into something quieter. You're from here? Ashley asked. Not intrusive. Curious. Asha hesitated. The truth felt layered, and she didn't want to peel it open. Yes, she said. Back. Ashley nodded, as if she understood what it meant to return somewhere that no longer fit. I'm not, she said. Obviously. The word obviously held no arrogance. Just fact. I'm doing this, she tapped her backpack lightly with her knuckles, because I didn't know what else to do once everything stopped. Everything stopped. Graduation. The last finals. The last late-night coffee. The last walk through campus under trees that didn't care who you were becoming. Asha felt something inside her loosen at the phrasing. Not the details. The feeling. Is this your first time? Asha asked, and then immediately wondered if that sounded like she was talking about something else. Ashley's lips curved, a private amusement flickering. In India, she clarified gently, as if offering Asha a way out of embarrassment. Yes. Asha nodded, grateful and vaguely irritated that Ashley could be kind without making it a performance. And you chose this train. I chose the idea of it, Ashley admitted. The Kashmir Railway. Everyone talked about it like it's not just a route, it's a story. Asha stared at the window again. Outside, fields and low buildings blurred into a watercolor of greens and browns. The sky was pale, washed out, like it had already been looked at too much. A story, Asha repeated. Ashley leaned her head back against the seat. Her throat was visible there, a small hollow above her collarbone. Asha looked away quickly, annoyed at her own attention. I wanted to be inside something that wasn't mine, Ashley said. Just for a while. Asha understood that too well. The thought returned, softer now, threaded with Ashley's voice. I wasn't supposed to be here. She didn't say it. She didn't say anything for a long moment. The compartment filled the silence for them. A man snored gently. A woman scrolled through her phone, face expressionless. The toddler finally succeeded in standing on the window ledge and was lifted down with weary affection. Ashley opened a side pocket of her backpack and pulled out a small packet. She held it out without ceremony. Do you want one? It's not good, she warned. Asha took it anyway. The packet was warm from Ashley's bag. Inside were almonds dusted with something spicy and sweet. Asha put one in her mouth. The taste hit sharp, salt, chili, a little sugar, and she had to blink. It was grounding, immediate. Her tongue tingled. Not good, Asha repeated deadpan. Ashley laughed softly. Okay, I lied. They ate in silence for a few minutes, passing the packet back and forth like it was ordinary to share saliva-adjacent food with someone you'd met an hour ago. Asha noticed how Ashley's fingers brushed the packet edge, careful, not possessive. She noticed the faint dryness at Ashley's knuckles, as if she washed her hands often. She noticed, too, how Ashley's knee kept shifting closer, then away, then closer again, with the train's sway. It wasn't flirtation. It was physics. But Asha's body responded as if it mattered. Her skin felt awake. Ashley wiped a speck of spice from the corner of her mouth with the back of her thumb. The gesture was so casual, so unself-conscious that Asha felt her attention snag on it like fabric on a nail. She looked away again. Get it together, she told herself. You're not what? Not the kind of person who notices the way another woman wipes her mouth? Not the kind of person who feels warmth from a shared packet of almonds? The thought didn't finish. It circled and returned to its earlier form, stubborn and familiar. I wasn't supposed to be here. Ashley shifted in her seat and glanced at Asha as if sensing something tightening. Can I ask you something? She said. Asha's stomach clenched. Okay. What do you miss most? Ashley asked. About Stanford. Asha stared at her. Of all questions, that one pierced in a place she hadn't been protecting. She expected questions about India, about directions, about safety. Not that. Not home. She could have lied. She could have said the campus, the weather, the coffee. Instead, her voice came out honest and quiet. The permission, she said. Ashley's expression changed. Not confusion. Recognition. Permission to be? Ashley prompted. Careful. Asha's mouth went dry. The train rattled louder for a moment, as if emphasizing her reluctance. To be unfinished, Asha said finally. To be becoming. Without everyone needing the final version of me. Ashley nodded slowly, almost imperceptibly. Yeah, she whispered. Yeah, I know that. Asha didn't ask how. She didn't ask what version Ashley was being pressured into. The space between them felt suddenly delicate, like glass warmed by hands. Ashley looked down at her own hands then. She worried at the strap of her watch, adjusting it, loosening it, tightening it again. Asha watched the motion with a strange tenderness, as if the habit was an admission. Sometimes, Ashley said, voice low, I feel like if I stop moving, I'll have to pick one life, like I'll have to decide what I am. Asha's throat tightened. She knew that fear, built in her bones. Outside, the landscape shifted into foothills. The air seemed to change with it. The light sharpened. Far away, a line of mountains rose like a thought you couldn't ignore once it arrived. Ashley turned slightly in her seat, following Asha's gaze. There, she murmured, as if she couldn't help herself. That's real. Asha nodded, but her attention wasn't on the mountains anymore. It was on the way Ashley said real, on the breath behind it, on the faint tremor of awe. Asha noticed her own body leaning in without permission. Not much. An inch. Maybe less. But it felt like crossing a border. Ashley didn't pull away. She stayed. She let the closeness exist. The train slowed briefly at a small station. People moved in the aisle. A vendor stepped into the compartment, calling out, chai, 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 chai. The smell of tea and boiling milk drifted in, sweet and comforting, and it threaded through the moment like a rope tying them to the world. Ashley bought 2 cups without asking. She handed one to Asha. Their fingers touched, just the pads, quick and accidental, yet Asha felt the contact bloom under her skin like heat. Asha stared at the cup in her hand. The paper was thin, almost too hot to hold. She shifted it between her palms, letting the warmth bite and then soothe. Ashley sipped her tea and watched Asha over the rim. Her eyes were a soft blue-gray, tired at the edges. Not young in a childish way. Young in a way that still held open space, uncertainty, hunger. Asha's chest felt too full. She took a sip of chai and let it burn her tongue slightly, grateful for the pain. Thought returned again, altered now by tea, by almonds, by touch. I wasn't supposed to be here. And yet. Ashley looked out the window, then back at Asha. My first stop, she said casually, as if discussing a museum, is a monastery. Asha's heart gave a small, unreasonable jump. A monastery? She echoed. Yeah, Ashley said. It's supposed to be quiet. Like, truly quiet. Up near the foothills. They let travelers stay sometimes. She hesitated just a fraction, then added, I wanted to start there. Before the rest of the trip turns into noise. Asha's fingers tightened around the chai cup. Quiet. A place where no one knew her name, her father, her obligations. A place where the air might not carry expectation. She told herself she was thinking practically. Safety. Shelter. A pause. But under the practicality, something else pressed closer. the desire not to lose the person beside her before she'd figured out why she didn't want to. Ashley watched Asha carefully now, the way you watch someone standing near a ledge. "You don't have to answer," she said softly. "I just thought I'd mention it." Asha nodded, gaze fixed on the tea. Her mind filled with the image of her father's face, stern, certain, as if certainty was a gift he could force onto her. Her mother's silence at dinner. The ring her aunt had shown her, laughing as if it was a joke. The note on the counter in her own handwriting, the ink trembling. Then she looked at Ashley's hands, steady around her cup, the watch strap worry returning, the faint spice still at the corner of her thumb. Life moved around them, the vendor leaving, the toddler crying briefly, then being soothed, the train picking up speed again. Asha felt, with startling clarity, that if she said no now, something inside her would close. Not the story. Not the trip. Something quieter. A door she didn't know she'd opened. She didn't speak immediately. She let the silence stretch, let it become a place they both had to sit inside. Ashley didn't rush her. She stared out the window again, giving Asha the gift of not being watched while deciding. Asha's thumb found the edge of her ticket again. The same softened corner. The same worn paper. Her hand knew the gesture by now, like a prayer she didn't believe in but kept repeating anyway. "I wasn't supposed to be here." Her breath caught. Maybe that was the point. Asha lifted her gaze to Ashley, to the line of her jaw, the way her mouth held back words, the way her presence felt like warmth against the cold metal of Asha's fear. "I could..." Asha started, then stopped. The sentence collapsed under its own weight. Ashley turned fully toward her, attentive without pressure. "Yeah," she said, barely audible. Asha swallowed. "Try it again." "I could come," she said, voice quiet. Not confident. Not dramatic. Just real. Ashley's eyes widened slightly, not surprise exactly, but something like relief that she hadn't allowed herself to want. Her smile came slowly, careful as if it might scare Asha away. "You don't have to," Ashley said again, softer now, as if the words mattered more this time. Asha nodded once, feeling the truth settle in her bones like a stone dropped into water. "I know," she said. But her body had already chosen. She stared at the blur of mountains outside, then back at Ashley, and felt the thought repeat, changed, cracked open by possibility. "I wasn't supposed to be here." And still. The decision didn't become real until the train announced it in small ways. Asha watched Ashley stand, shift her backpack higher onto her shoulder, then pause, just long enough to glance back at Asha as if she needed to confirm she hadn't imagined the offer. The aisle was crowded with bodies moving on instinct. Asha stayed seated for a beat too long, staring at the paper cup of chai in her hands as if it might tell her what she was doing. The cup was empty now, but the warmth still clung to her palms. She reached into her bag, felt her phone there, silent, powered down, and left it untouched. Then she stood. The train rocked as she stepped into the aisle. For a moment she had to steady herself with the overhead rail. The metal was cool, damp with the residue of other hands, and the sensation made her more awake than she wanted to be. Ashley waited for her without hovering. She didn't take Asha's arm, didn't crowd her. She simply stood with her backpack and her quiet, attentive face, offering presence instead of insistence. Together they moved toward the door. Outside the compartment, the corridor was narrower, louder. The air smelled sharper here, sweat, crushed fabric, something oily and sweet from a vendor's tray. People flowed around them like water around stones. Asha kept her eyes on Ashley's shoulders, on the line of her neck where a strand of hair had escaped and was sticking to skin from humidity. It was a small detail, unimportant. Her mind treated it like an anchor. Ashley reached the train door and glanced back again. "You okay?" Asha nodded too quickly. "Yeah." Ashley's gaze lingered. Not on Asha's face, exactly. On her hands, perhaps, because Asha's fingers had found the edge of her ticket again without her noticing. Thumb rubbing paper. Paper softening. The habit had become a kind of pulse. "You don't have to keep doing that," Ashley said gently, almost smiling. Asha paused, embarrassed. She let the ticket fall into her pocket. "I didn't realize." Ashley's expression softened. "It's a thing," she said, like she was naming it without judging it. "We all have a thing." As the train slowed, the corridor shifted. People braced. Asha felt the change in her knees before she saw it. The world outside the window sharpened. A platform, a sign, a scattering of people in bright clothes. The train exhaled into the station. Ashley stepped down first, then turned immediately, not reaching out, but close enough that Asha could catch herself if she needed to. Asha descended and felt, as her feet met the platform, a sudden disorientation. The ground stayed still. It didn't sway under her like the train. Her body missed the motion, like it had been holding onto it for safety. They walked together through the station. The crowd thinned as they moved away from the central platform, toward a smaller exit where the air felt cooler. The mountains were closer now, no longer a line on the horizon but a presence. The light had a faint metallic edge, as if the sky were holding its breath. Ashley led without assuming. She checked her phone briefly, screen bright in the muted daylight, then slipped it away again as if she didn't want it to interrupt what was happening between them. Asha glanced at Ashley's wrist. The watch strap. Ashley's fingers had been worrying it again, absent-mindedly loosening, tightening. Asha wondered when it started. Whether it had a meaning Ashley didn't speak. They found a shared taxi with 2 other travelers, a couple who barely looked up from their conversation. The driver nodded at Ashley's directions with a familiarity that suggested he'd done this route 100 times. Asha slid into the back seat beside Ashley, their knees almost touching. The taxi smelled of gasoline and old incense. The seat vinyl stuck faintly to Asha's legs through her jeans. The road wound upward. The town fell away behind them. The air cooled in slow increments, each turn shaving off a layer of heat. The mountains grew larger. The sky turned paler as if it were running out of color. Ashley sat with her hands in her lap, fingers laced loosely. Asha watched them without meaning to. Ashley's knuckles were slightly dry. There was a faint smear of spice still at one thumb, stubborn and real. Asha wanted to speak. She didn't know what. The silence between them didn't feel awkward. It felt inhabited, like a room that didn't require furniture to be real. Asha's thoughts tried to circle back to the beginning, to her father's voice, to the ring, to the kitchen counter with her note. But each time, the present tugged her away. The taxi's vibration, the distant sound of river water, the occasional bump that made Ashley's shoulder brush hers. Each brush was small. Each one echoed longer than it should have. Ashley glanced out the window, then at Asha. "You're quiet." Asha let out a breath she hadn't noticed she was holding. Trying not to think." Ashley smiled faintly. "Same." Asha turned her head toward the window. The trees outside were darker now, dense and wet-looking. A mist was starting to form in the distance, low and soft, like an idea not fully arrived. "I didn't plan this," Asha said suddenly. The words came out before she could shape them. Ashley didn't react with surprise. She simply nodded. "I know." Asha's throat tightened. "I don't even know where we're going." "I do," Ashley said, and there was something almost tender in the simplicity of it. "And I can tell you every step if you want. Or I can just be here." Asha stared at her. The offer landed with a quiet weight. Not control. Not instruction. Choice. "Just be here," Asha whispered. Ashley's gaze held hers for a beat too long, then drifted away, as if she was giving Asha space to breathe. But the moment stayed lodged under Asha's skin. The taxi climbed into fog. For a while, the world outside dissolved into gray. The road became a narrow ribbon. The driver slowed, cautious. The couple in the front seat stopped talking. Asha could hear the soft click of Ashley's tongue against her teeth, a habit that appeared only when she was thinking. Time stretched. The story did not advance. It simply existed. Asha watched condensation gather on the inside of the window. Droplets forming, trembling, then sliding down in thin tracks. She followed one droplet with her eyes for an absurdly long time, as if it were a task she could succeed at. Her mind kept returning to the same thought, changing its shape slightly each time it arrived. I wasn't supposed to be here. I wasn't supposed to be leaving. I wasn't supposed to be beside her. Each repetition was the same and not the same. Ashley shifted in her seat. The movement brought their thighs into brief contact. The fabric of Ashley's pants was soft, worn, lived in. Asha felt it through denim like a ghost of touch. Her body reacted before her mind could label it. Heat rising under her ribs. A tightening low in her stomach. A pulse that didn't belong to fear alone. She kept her face still. Kept her eyes on the droplet. Ashley didn't move away. If anything, she settled more comfortably, as if the closeness was now part of the environment. When the fog thinned, the monastery appeared almost without warning. It sat on the slope above the road, built of stone that matched the mountain's muted colors. Prayer flags hung in lines that sagged slightly under moisture, their colors faded by wind and time. A low bell sound drifted through the air, thin as thread. The taxi stopped. The driver unloaded their bags with quiet efficiency. Ashley paid him, thanked him. Asha stood on the roadside and stared up at the monastery's entrance. The air here smelled different. Cold, damp, and faintly smoky, as if someone had burned cedar nearby. Ashley walked a few steps ahead, then slowed so Asha could match her pace. They climbed the stone steps together. Asha's breath came faster than it should have from the mild exertion. Whether from altitude or something else, she couldn't say. At the gate, a monk waited. He was older, his head shaved, his face deeply lined. His robe was simple. His eyes, when they met Asha's, didn't feel intrusive. They felt impossibly familiar. As if he'd seen her before in a different context, in a different life, and had been patient enough to wait for her to arrive again. Ashley greeted him with a small bow that looked practiced, despite being her first time. The monk returned it, then looked at both of them as if measuring something invisible. His smile was slight, not theatrical, just knowing. "Good," he said softly, in English that carried an accent she couldn't place. "You've come." Ashley blinked. "Yes, we." The monk's gaze moved to Asha. "Both of you." Asha felt her spine stiffen. Ashley glanced at Asha, quick and questioning, as if to say, "Did you tell him?" Asha shook her head almost imperceptibly. The monk's smile deepened by a fraction, like he'd expected this confusion. "It is cold tonight," he said, as if changing the subject. "And the road will not be safe after dark. You can stay." Ashley exhaled, relieved. "Thank you." Asha opened her mouth to speak and realized she didn't know what language her gratitude belonged in anymore. She managed, "Thank you, anyway." The monk gestured them inside. The monastery's interior smelled of incense and old stone. The air was cooler, cleaner. The walls were lined with small paintings, mandalas, deities, mountains. Asha's eyes caught on one image of two figures walking side by side on a narrow path, their faces turned slightly toward each other. It was probably nothing. It didn't feel like nothing. They were shown a small guest room, 2 simple beds, folded blankets, a basin with water that made Asha's hands ache when she dipped her fingers in. There was a single window, fog pressed against it like breath. Ashley set her backpack down and looked around. "It's quiet," she whispered, as if speaking too loudly would break something. Asha nodded. Quiet in a way that didn't demand performance. They unpacked without hurry. Mundane acts, lived slowly, Ashley hanging a jacket on a wooden hook. Asha folding her scarf, then unfolding it again, uncertain. Ashley slipping her shoes off carefully at the door, lining them up parallel. Asha noticed, absurdly, that Ashley did everything as if she wanted the world to be kept gentle. When Ashley turned away, Asha reached into her pocket and touched the ticket again. Paper. Soft corner. Her thumb began rubbing it before she could stop herself. Ashley glanced back, saw the motion, but didn't comment this time. She only smiled faintly, a quiet acknowledgement, as if to say, "I see you." "It's okay." The monastery offered them a simple meal. Rice, lentils, vegetables cooked with mild spices. They ate in a small communal hall with a few other travelers. Asha sat beside Ashley on a long wooden bench. Their shoulders brushed occasionally. Each brush was small, but Asha's body recorded them like punctuation. They didn't talk much. Ashley's attention seemed partly on the room, partly inward. Asha felt the same. The day had stretched long, full of motion, yet something inside her hadn't moved at all. It was still stuck at the kitchen counter, at her father's certainty, at her own note. After dinner, the monks invited the guests to join evening meditation. Asha almost declined. The idea of sitting still with her mind felt dangerous. But then Ashley stood, as if drawn by gravity rather than choice. And Asha followed without thinking. The meditation hall was dim, lit by small lamps that gave everything a golden edge. Cushions were arranged in rows. The air smelled of incense and something earthy, damp wool perhaps from the cushions. They sat side by side. Asha crossed her legs awkwardly. Her knees protested. She tried to settle, tried to breathe. The monk's voice began, soft, rhythmic, not commanding. He spoke about breath, about letting thoughts pass, about not clinging. Asha closed her eyes. At first her mind fought. Images rose and fell, Her father's face. The ring. Stanford's palm trees. Ashley's profile. The chai cup in her hands. The droplet on the taxi window. Each image came with a bodily echo. Tightness, warmth, ache. She tried not to cling. She failed. Then she stopped trying so hard. Time became strange. Breath became the only measure. Beside her, Ashley's breathing was audible, quiet, steady, slightly uneven on the exhale. Asha found herself matching it without intending to. Their breaths fell into rhythm, and Asha felt a subtle shift inside her, like a lock turning. A thought surfaced, not as a sentence, but as a sensation. Recognition. Not intellectual. Bodily. Like stepping into a room and knowing, without seeing, that someone you've missed is there. Asha's stomach softened. Her shoulders dropped. The tension in her jaw loosened. Then, without warning, something changed. The hall's dimness deepened. The monk's voice receded. The sound of breath widened into a vast, echoing space. Asha saw. No, not saw. Felt. A different air. A different light. She was walking, barefoot, on stone warmed by sun. Her body was not her body. Yet the feeling of it was intimate, unquestioned. Beside her was someone close enough that their sleeve brushed hers. A familiar closeness. A warmth that made the world feel harmless. She turned her head, and there was a face she couldn't fully hold, edges blurred, like a dream resisting detail. But the emotion was sharp. Love, steady and quiet, like a hand placed on the heart. She felt laughter in her chest. She felt the taste of something bitter and sweet on her tongue. Tea? Herbs? And the sound of bells, distant but constant. She felt safe. The vision did not rush. It lingered, lived in. They walked. They paused. There was nothing dramatic, only an ordinary devotion between two people who belonged together, so completely it felt like air. Asha's breath caught, and then she felt beside her a shift. A presence turning. A breath changing. Ashley. Asha didn't open her eyes. She couldn't. She was afraid the vision would shatter if she moved. But she knew, with the strange certainty of altered consciousness, that Ashley was seeing it too. When the monk's voice returned, gentle, guiding them back, Asha felt herself drift upward through layers of sensation. The meditation hall returned. The cushion under her legs returned. Her knees ached again. The incense returned, smoky and real. She opened her eyes slowly. Ashley's eyes were already open. They stared at each other. For a long moment, neither spoke. The hall around them remained quiet. Other guests sat still, faces calm or distant. The monks moved softly, like shadows. The world continued. But between Asha and Ashley, something had changed. Not solved. Not named. Shifted. Ashley swallowed. Her throat moved like she was holding back words. Her fingers went to her watch strap, loosening it, tightening it. A small, repeated action, like an anchor in a storm. Asha's own hands went to her pocket without thinking. The ticket. The soft paper corner. Her thumb rubbed it, seeking the familiar friction, the proof of the present. Ashley's mouth opened slightly, then closed. Her eyes looked wet, not crying, just affected. Like someone who had walked too close to a fire. Asha could have spoken first. Could have asked, "Did you see it?" Could have laughed it off, made it smaller. Instead, she stayed silent. The silence was not empty. It was full of what neither of them knew how to hold. Finally, Ashley leaned a fraction closer. Not touching. Just close enough that Asha could feel the warmth of her body through the air. Ashley started. She stopped. Try it again, softer. I saw something. Asha nodded once. Her voice barely worked. Me too. Ashley's breath trembled. It was like I remembered something that I've never lived. Asha's chest tightened, then loosened, like a knot being tested. Yes, she whispered. Like it was. Already there. Ashley stared at her as if searching Asha's face for confirmation that she wasn't losing her mind. Asha held her gaze and let it be real. They didn't say more in the hall. They couldn't. The world around them was too present, too quiet, too full of rules. When the meditation ended, people rose slowly. Cushions shifted. Feet
I don't
patted
know what to
softly on
do.
wood.
We'll figure it
The monk
out
who had
together.
greeted them earlier approached,
But it's so
moving with the
uncertain.
ease of someone who didn't hurry for anyone's confusion. He looked at them, and again Asha felt that strange familiarity in his gaze. Not judgment. Not intrusion. The gentle calm of someone who had been waiting for a moment to ripen. Rest, he said softly. The weather will change in the night. Ashley blinked. What we saw? The monk lifted a hand, not silencing her, but guiding the pace. Not everything must be named immediately, he said. Some things become true slowly. Asha's throat tightened. She didn't know if she wanted slowness or certainty. The monk's gaze moved between them. You found each other, he said simply. Let that be enough for tonight. Then he walked away, leaving the words behind like incense smoke. Present. But impossible to grasp. Back in the guest room, the quiet felt louder. Ashley sat on her bed, shoes off, hair falling loose from its knot. She ran her fingers through it absently, then stopped, as if realizing she was exposing something intimate without intending to. Asha stood near the window, staring into fog. The glass was cold against her forehead when she leaned into it. Neither moved toward the other. Neither moved away. Life did not pause, even here. Somewhere down the corridor, someone laughed softly. A door closed. A bell chimed once, then silence again. Ashley spoke into the quiet. Do you think it means something? Asha's thumb found the ticket again. The paper corner was almost too soft now, nearly worn through. She rubbed it anyway, as if friction could create clarity. I don't know, Asha admitted. Ashley's voice was barely audible. It felt familiar. Asha turned slowly. Ashley was watching her, eyes wide and unguarded, like someone who had been cut open by a truth she didn't expect. Asha's body reacted before her mind could shape words. She took one step closer, then another, stopping at a distance that still respected space, still allowed breathing room. It felt familiar to me too, Asha said. Ashley's hands twisted in her lap. She caught herself and reached for her watch strap again, tugging it, releasing it. A nervous loop. Asha wanted suddenly to reach out and still Ashley's hands. Not to claim, not to take, just to quiet the repetition. She didn't. Instead, she sat on the edge of her own bed, facing Ashley across the narrow room. The space between them was filled with cold air and unspoken language. They talked quietly, in fragments. Not a story. Not an explanation. Just the edges of what they could bear. Ashley described the sound of bells. Asha described the warmth of stone under bare feet. Ashley described laughter in her chest like it belonged to another person. Asha described a hand she could almost feel, placed against her heart. Each detail matched. Each match tightened something between them, like thread being pulled. At some point, Ashley's voice faltered. She looked down. I didn't come here for, she started. Asha waited. Ashley shook her head slightly as if correcting herself. No, that's not true. I didn't know what I came here for. Asha's throat tightened with a strange tenderness. Me neither, she said. Outside, the wind rose. The monastery walls creaked faintly. The fog pressed harder against the window. Somewhere distant, thunder rumbled. Low, restrained, like the sky trying not to wake anyone. The weather was changing, just as the monk said. Ashley looked up again, eyes searching Asha's face. When you decided to come with me, she said softly, was it because you wanted quiet? Asha's breath caught. The question was gentle, but it pierced. She could have answered with the practical truth. Safety. Shelter. Distance. Instead, she told the truth that lived underneath, the one that felt like stepping onto a narrow bridge. It was because I didn't want to lose you, Asha said, voice almost inaudible. Ashley went still. For a moment, everything in the room stopped moving. Not the world, not time, but something inside Ashley's body. As if she had been bracing for that truth without knowing it. Her eyes flickered. A small inhale. A pause that held too long. Then, softly, as if confessing without making it a burden, Ashley said, I didn't want to lose you either. The words did not resolve anything. They only made the room warmer, denser, harder to breathe in. Asha felt her body respond before her mind. Heat under her ribs. A tug forward. A longing that didn't know its own name yet, only its direction. She stayed seated. Ashley stayed seated. They watched each other across the space like two people standing at the edge of water, unsure how cold it would be once they stepped in. The thunder rumbled again, closer this time. Asha's thumb rubbed the ticket edge once more, slower now, as if she were trying to learn the shape of her own decision. I wasn't supposed to be here. The thought returned, changed again by the truth Ashley had spoken. And still. Ashley's gaze dropped briefly to Asha's hand at her pocket, the repeated gesture. Then back to Asha's face. Her expression softened into something almost helpless. Neither of them moved toward the other. But neither of them looked away. The storm arrived without ceremony. Asha woke to the sound of rain, striking stone with quiet insistence. Not violent, but constant enough to erase the edges of sleep. For a moment she didn't remember where she was. The room felt unfamiliar in the dark, cool air, the faint scent of incense clinging to fabric, the steady breathing of someone else not far away. Then it returned. The monastery. The vision. Ashley. Asha lay still, listening. The rain had a rhythm that felt intentional, almost intimate, as if it were meant to be heard rather than ignored. She turned her head slightly and saw Ashley's silhouette across the room, curled on her side, hair loose across the pillow, one arm bent awkwardly as if she hadn't fully settled. The sight of her landed softly and deeply at the same time. Asha closed her eyes again, but the images from the night before pressed forward, stone warmed by sun, laughter in her chest that hadn't felt like her own, the certainty of being known without explanation. Her body remembered before her mind could sort through it. A warmth spread low and slow, not urgent, not demanding, just present. She sat up quietly, careful not to disturb the fragile stillness. Her feet touched the cold floor and she inhaled sharply, grounding herself in sensation. Outside, thunder rolled again, distant but nearer than before. Ashley stirred. She didn't wake all at once. She shifted, frowned slightly, then opened her eyes as if surfacing from deep water. When her gaze found Asha sitting on the edge of the bed, something changed in her expression. Not surprise, not confusion. Recognition. They looked at each other for a long moment without speaking. The rain filled the space where words might have gone. "I didn't sleep," Ashley said finally, her voice low, rough with disuse. Asha nodded. "Me neither." Ashley pushed herself upright, pulling the blanket around her shoulders. The movement was instinctive, protective, but she didn't hide. She simply existed in the room with Asha, unguarded in her tiredness. "I kept thinking I'd imagined it," Ashley said. "That if I woke up, it would feel distant." Asha swallowed. "It doesn't, no." Ashley agreed quietly. "It doesn't." Silence returned, thicker now. Charged. Asha became acutely aware of her own body. How close she was to Ashley, how the space between their beds felt suddenly artificial. Her hands rested in her lap, fingers curling and uncurling once before stilling. Outside, the rain intensified, drumming harder against the monastery roof. The sound wrapped around them, private and enclosing. Ashley stood first. She crossed the room slowly, barefoot on stone, and stopped near the window. Fog pressed against the glass, making the world beyond feel unreachable. She rested her forehead lightly against it, then turned back toward Asha. "I don't know what this means," she said out honestly. "And I'm not asking you to explain it." Asha rose as well, drawn forward without deciding to be. She stopped a careful distance away, close enough to feel Ashley's warmth, far enough to give her room to step back. "I don't need to explain it," Asha said. Her voice was steady, though her chest felt tight. "I just feel it." Ashley let out a breath that sounded like relief. Her eyes dropped, then lifted again, searching Asha's face. "When you look at me," she said slowly, "it feels like you already know something about me. Something I haven't told you." Asha felt the truth of it vibrate through her, unmistakable. "It feels the same to me." The space between them narrowed without either of them moving. The air itself seemed to contract, carrying heat and breath and possibility. Ashley's hand lifted halfway, then hesitated, fingers suspended, as if waiting for permission from a world that had never given it freely. Asha watched the hesitation, felt it mirror something inside her. She stepped closer. Not touching yet, just close enough that Ashley's breath brushed her cheek when she exhaled. Ashley's eyes fluttered shut for a second. When they opened again, there was fear there, but not of Asha. Fear of crossing a line that would erase the possibility of going back. "I don't want to do this if it changes everything," Ashley whispered. Asha felt something inside her settle, calm and certain. "It already has." The words weren't dramatic. They were simply true. Ashley laughed softly, a broken sound. "Yeah," she said. "Yeah, it has." For a moment neither moved. The rain thundered on. The monastery creaked. Somewhere down the corridor, a door closed gently. Then Ashley leaned in, not fully, not decisively. Just enough to test the gravity between them. Asha met her halfway. The kiss was quiet. No urgency. No claiming. Their lips touched softly, tentatively, as if they were learning a language neither of them had spoken aloud before. Ashley's mouth was warm, unfamiliar, trembling slightly. Asha felt the contact bloom outward through her chest, her throat, her hands. They pulled back almost immediately. Ashley's forehead rested against Asha's, their noses brushing. They breathed together, shallow and unsteady. Asha felt herself smiling without meaning to. Not happiness exactly, something deeper, calmer. Ashley let out a small disbelieving laugh. "Oh," she whispered. "That." Asha nodded. "Yeah." They didn't kiss again right away. Instead they stayed like that, foreheads touching, sharing breath, letting their bodies register what had just happened. The world outside didn't collapse. The monastery didn't fall silent. Nothing dramatic followed. But inside Asha, a line had been crossed. She knew, without fear, without confusion, that she could not unfeel this. Could not re-enter her old life untouched by it. Ashley pulled back slightly, eyes shining. "I'm scared," she admitted. "So am I," Asha said. Ashley smiled, small and sincere. "Good." They laughed quietly together, the sound easing something tight between them. When they finally stepped apart, the room felt different, not resolved, not settled, but altered. Charged with an intimacy that didn't need constant contact to exist. Asha's thumb drifted instinctively toward her pocket, toward the worn paper ticket, then stopped. She let her hand fall instead. Ashley noticed. Her gaze softened, and something unspoken passed between them. A shared understanding that some habits were already beginning to loosen. The rain began to slow, each drop more distinct now, less frantic. Morning light filtered weakly through the fog. Whatever waited for them beyond the monastery walls, families, expectations, distances, remained untouched for the moment. They had crossed something, and there was no returning to who they had been before. The rain didn't stop so much as it grew tired. By late morning, it became a thinner sound, a soft, persistent tapping that made the monastery feel sealed off from the rest of the world. Fog still pressed against the window like breath, but light had begun to seep through it, pale and tentative, as if the day was not entirely sure it was allowed to arrive. Asha stood at the basin, washing her hands in cold water that stung her fingers awake. She watched the water run over her knuckles and thought, absurdly, about how the kiss had been quieter than anything else in her life, and still had rearranged her more completely than her father's shouting ever could. Behind her, Ashley moved in the room without speaking. The floor creaked under her steps. Cloth rustled. A zipper opened, then stopped halfway as if she'd reconsidered what she needed. Asha dried her hands slowly, too slowly. She could feel Ashley's presence without turning around. A warmth behind her shoulder blades. The faint scent of soap on Ashley's skin mixed with incense that clung to everything here. When Asha finally turned, Ashley was sitting on the edge of her bed, pulling on a sweater with careful, deliberate motions. Her hair was still damp from a hurried rinse, curled slightly at the ends. The sweater collar caught for a second at her throat, and she adjusted it with a small impatience that made Asha's chest tighten. Ashley's fingers went to her watch strap, tugging it once. Then again. A nervous loop. She seemed to realize she was doing it, and stopped, pressing her palm flat to her own thigh like an apology to herself. Asha didn't mention it. She didn't mention anything. They existed in the room together as if both were afraid that speaking too plainly would make the moment either vanish or become too real to carry. "Are you hungry?" Asha asked eventually. Her voice sounded careful, like she was placing a glass down on stone. Ashley looked up. Her eyes met Asha's and held. Asha felt the memory of their mouths touching flare softly under her skin, an echo more than a spark. "Yeah," Ashley said. Then, almost as if correcting herself, "I think so." They walked to the communal hall without touching. Their shoulders came close once in the narrow corridor, and Ashley shifted slightly to make space. It wasn't rejection. It was restraint. Asha understood the instinct in it too well. Breakfast was simple, steaming bowls of porridge, tea, a little fruit. The hall smelled of warm grain and wood. Other travelers sat scattered around, quiet in that post-storm way people get when their bodies are relieved to be alive and dry. Asha and Ashley took a bench near the wall. For a while they ate in silence, spooning porridge slowly, letting heat spread through their throats. The tea was bitter and earthy. Asha liked it. It made her feel grounded, like something ancient and honest was inside her. Ashley stirred her tea without drinking it at first. The spoon clicked softly against the cup. Asha watched the small repetitive motion and felt her own thoughts begin to loop in response. This happened. This happened. This happened. Ashley glanced up. I keep thinking we should talk, she said softly, almost without air. Asha swallowed. About what? Ashley's mouth twitched, not amused, pained. About... She stopped. Her fingers went to the watch strap again, tugging, releasing. About the fact that I can still feel it. Asha's spoon paused halfway to her mouth. The porridge cooled on the metal. She nodded once. Me too. Ashley exhaled, the sound barely audible. I didn't think it would. She stopped again. Her eyes dropped to the table, to the grain of wood worn smooth by years of hands. I didn't think it would feel inevitable. Asha's throat tightened. The word inevitable hit her like a bell, clear, resonant, frightening. It doesn't have to be, Asha said, though even as she said it she knew the words were only half true. They didn't have to do anything. But what had already happened in her body did not ask permission. Ashley looked at her sharply, as if the statement was both relief and insult. I know, she said. Then softer, almost pleading, but it does. Asha stared at the tea in front of her. The steam rose in thin threads and disappeared. She thought of her father's house, the heavy air of dinner, the way her mother's eyes had avoided hers lately, as if not seeing was a kind of loyalty. She thought of Ashley's mouth, warm, hesitant, real. Asha's hand drifted toward her pocket without thinking, fingertips brushing the worn edge of her ticket. The paper was nearly ruined now, soft as cloth at the corners from her thumb. She rubbed it once, then forced herself to stop. Ashley noticed anyway. Her gaze flicked to Asha's hand, then back up. Something passed between them, an understanding that they were both clinging to small actions because the larger feeling was too big to hold steadily. After breakfast, the monk who had greeted them met them near the courtyard. The fog was thinning now, revealing stone steps slick with moisture, prayer flags snapping softly in a cold breeze. The road is still not safe, he said calmly. You will stay today. Ashley nodded quickly, grateful. Asha felt her own relief, and with it, an immediate wave of guilt. Relief meant she wanted more time here. More time with Ashley. More time before her father's certainty returned to claim her. The monk looked at them the way he had the night before, quietly, as if seeing something under their faces. Walk, he suggested, as if it were medicine. The mountain is patient. It can hold what you cannot. He left them then, not giving instructions beyond that. No questions. No expectations. Only space. They walked the monastery grounds slowly, careful on wet stone. The air smelled of cedar and damp earth. Water dripped from the eaves in steady intervals. Somewhere, a bell chimed once, then quiet. Ashley kept a slight distance at first. Not far. Just enough to feel like control. Asha matched her pace without trying to close the space. They passed a small garden where herbs grew in neat rows despite the harshness of the altitude. Asha watched Ashley pause there, fingertips hovering over a plant without touching it. What is it? Asha asked. Ashley leaned closer and hailed. Mint, she said, faintly surprised. It's so alive. Asha watched her breathe it in again. The simplicity of it made something in Asha ache. Ashley had come here to be inside something that wasn't hers. And now she was standing in front of a mint plant like it had given her permission to exist. Asha stepped closer, enough that their sleeves brushed. Ashley didn't move away this time. She went still, as if allowing the contact but afraid of wanting it. They walked again, past a low wall overlooking the valley. The fog had lifted enough to show a pale ribbon of river far below, moving steadily, indifferent to human urgency. They stopped at the wall. Asha rested her hands on the stone, feeling cold seep into her palms. Ashley stood beside her, close enough that Asha could sense her warmth. Neither spoke for a long time. The narrative did not advance. It simply held. Asha's mind filled the silence with looping thoughts. Not solutions. Not plans. Only circling. If I go back, I will be asked to become someone else. If I stay, I don't know what I'm choosing. If I reach for her, I will not be able to pretend later that I didn't. Ashley's breathing was shallow beside her. Asha could hear it, could feel it like a vibration in the air. Finally, Ashley said very quietly, "I don't want to make you braver than you are." Asha's throat tightened. "You're not making me anything." Ashley's mouth pressed into a line. "It feels like you're standing at the edge of something, and I'm the wind." Asha turned her head slowly, looking at Ashley's profile. The wind lifted a loose strand of Ashley's hair and pushed it against her cheek. Ashley didn't brush it away. She just stood there, eyes on the valley, as if she didn't trust herself to look directly at Asha while saying the next words. "I'm scared of being the reason you break with your family," Ashley said. Asha's chest constricted. The words hit deep because they were shaped by care, not fear. "You're not the reason," Asha said, but her voice wavered. "You're just the first thing that has felt like mine." Ashley flinched slightly at that, as if it hurt. She looked at Asha then, eyes open and raw. Asha felt the urge to step closer, to close the space fully, to touch Ashley's wrist, and still the anxious tugging at the watch strap that had become a constant rhythm. She didn't. She kept her hands on the cold stone. Ashley's gaze dropped to Asha's mouth for a fraction of a second, then lifted again quickly, like she was ashamed of her own desire. Asha felt it anyway. The look lingered inside her, a quiet heat. They walked back slowly. In the afternoon, they helped in small monastery tasks without being asked. Mundane acts that made the day feel real. Ashley carried a bucket of water from one corridor to another, careful not to spill. Asha folded laundry with a monk who didn't speak much English, but smiled when Asha managed the folds correctly. Their hands moved through warm cloth. The smell of soap rose and faded. At one point, Ashley passed behind Asha in the corridor, close enough that her shoulder brushed Asha's back. It was brief, unintentional. But Asha's body reacted instantly, skin tightening, breath catching, the memory of the kiss blooming behind her ribs. Ashley paused too, as if she'd felt it. For a second they stood in the corridor without turning, both suspended in the knowledge of their own bodies. Ashley's voice came soft, almost strained. "Sorry." Asha swallowed. "Don't be." Ashley didn't move for a moment, then continued walking. Asha watched her go, feeling the absence like a physical thing. By evening, the sky cleared further. The monastery's lamps cast warm pools of light in corridors. Dinner was quiet again, full of clinking bowls and low murmurs. After they returned to their room, the intimacy of it felt different now. No longer accidental. No longer purely situational. It had weight. It followed them. Ashley stood near her bed, then sat, then stood again. She couldn't settle. Her fingers found the watch strap, tugging, releasing, tugging. Asha sat on her bed and watched her for a long moment. The urge to touch was sharp now, not sexual, not hungry. Comforting. The desire to still something frightened. Ashley finally spoke, voice low. "I keep thinking I should leave." Asha's stomach dropped. "Why?" Ashley's laugh was small and bitter. "Because I'm good at leaving." Asha stared at her. In the lamplight, Ashley's face looked older than 23. Not aged, weighted. And because Ashley continued, almost whispering, "If I stay, I'll want things. I'll want you to come with me. I want to be the thing you choose." Asha's breath caught. Ashley's eyes lifted. "And I don't know if I can live with wanting that." Asha's fingers went to her pocket again, touched the ruined ticket edge. The habit was instinctive now, but she didn't rub it. She held it still, like holding her own pulse. "I don't know what I'm going to do," Asha admitted. Ashley nodded, eyes shining. "Me neither." Silence settled between them, heavy and intimate. It filled the room like fog had filled the valley. Asha watched Ashley's hands. Watched the strap. Watched the way Ashley's fingers trembled slightly as she tried to stop tugging. Asha stood slowly and stepped closer, not all the way, just enough to make the gesture a question. Ashley looked up, breath caught, as if bracing for either comfort or goodbye. Asha lifted her hand. She paused. The suspended moment held everything. The kiss, the vision, the road back to her father's house, the plane to California months from now, the countless ways a choice could fracture into regret. Asha's hand hovered between them, not touching Ashley yet. Ashley's eyes closed briefly, then opened again, waiting. Asha didn't know if she was about to soothe Ashley, or pull away first. Her fingers trembled. And still, she held them there, 1 inch from Ashley's wrist, without making the decision. The separation did not announce itself. It arrived quietly, the way truth often does when it knows it will hurt. Asha stood at the edge of the monastery steps with her bag at her feet, the morning thin and colorless around them. The air smelled like wet stone and pine. Ashley was a few feet away, pretending to adjust her backpack straps even though they were already tight. Neither of them said this is goodbye. They didn't need to. The mountain had already begun to loosen its hold, giving them back to roads and obligations and names that would follow them wherever they went. Ashley stepped forward first. Not rushed. Not hesitant. She stopped close enough that Asha could feel her warmth without touching. "I'm going to keep moving," Ashley said, voice steady in the way people sound when they've practiced saying something alone. "That's who I am." Asha nodded. She didn't ask her to stay. She didn't offer promises she didn't yet know how to keep. "And Asha started, then stopped. She took a breath. "I have to go home. I can't disappear from that." Ashley's mouth curved into a sad, understanding smile. "I know." Silence stretched. Not awkward. Full. Ashley lifted her hand slowly, giving Asha time to step back if she wanted to. Asha didn't. She leaned in instead, just enough. The kiss was different from the first. Longer. Firmer. Still restrained but no longer uncertain. Ashley's hands came to rest at Asha's waist, not pulling, not claiming, simply anchoring. Asha felt the truth of it spread through her, calm and undeniable. When they pulled apart, Ashley rested her forehead against Asha's for a brief moment, eyes closed. "Find me," she whispered. Not a demand. A hope. Asha nodded. "I will." They walked away in opposite directions without looking back. Home did not receive Asha gently. The house felt smaller than she remembered, the walls heavy with expectation. Her father listened in silence as she spoke, his jaw tightening, his hands clasped behind his back, as if holding himself together by force. "No," he said finally. Not loud. Absolute. "This is not what we planned." Asha's chest burned, but she did not lower her gaze. "I'm not a plan," she said. The words surprised even her. The argument that followed was not dramatic. It was worse. Measured. Controlled. A man trying to reason his daughter back into the shape he understood. When Asha told him she loved a woman, his face closed, not in anger first, but in fear. Fear of what the world would do to her. Fear of what it would say about him. Fear passed down like inheritance. "I didn't raise you for this," he said quietly. Asha swallowed. "You raised me to think," she replied. This is where that thinking led. Days passed heavy and unresolved. Silence at meals. Her mother's quiet glances that carried both worry and pride. The night before her flight, her father stood in the doorway of her room, uncertain, smaller than she remembered. "You will regret this," he said, not unkindly. Asha met his gaze. "Maybe," she said. "But it will be my regret." He said nothing more. In the morning, he touched her head briefly before she left. A blessing. Not acceptance. Not refusal. Enough. The plane crossed the ocean in hours that felt unreal. Asha stared out the window and thought about Ashley, not just her face, but the weight of her presence, the way the world seemed to soften around her. And then the fear came. Not about love. That part felt settled. It was the quieter fear. The one no one prepares you for. What if I don't know how to touch her? What if I want her but don't know how to give? What if desire isn't enough? The questions looped through her mind, shame threaded through them like static. She had never been with a woman. Never learned this language. Never been taught how to listen with her body instead of performing. She imagined Ashley's hands. Her breath. The moment where expectation might arrive, and Asha might fail it. The fear stayed with her all the way to California. The airport was loud and bright, and utterly ordinary. Asha moved through it on instinct, heart pounding harder with every step. She scanned faces without knowing exactly what she was looking for until she saw her. Ashley stood near the railing, hair shorter now, wearing a jacket that made her look impossibly real. She wasn't searching. She was waiting. Their eyes met. The rest of the airport dissolved. Ashley smiled first, slow, grounding. Asha felt her knees weaken with relief. They crossed the space between them without running. Ashley opened her arms. Asha stepped into them. The hug was everything the kiss hadn't been allowed to be. Full. Pressed. Breathing together like they'd done it 1,000 times. Ashley pulled back just enough to look at her. You came. Asha laughed, breathless. I said I would. Ashley's thumb brushed Asha's cheek, tentative but sure. You look different, so do you. They didn't kiss there. Not yet. They held hands instead, fingers lacing naturally, as if their bodies remembered what their minds had doubted. The apartment was small. Quiet. Warm. They moved through it slowly, aware of every sound, every shift. Ashley set their bags down. Asha hovered, suddenly unsure of her hands, her stance, her own breath. The fear returned, sharp and immediate. Ashley noticed. She stepped closer, not touching yet. You okay? Asha hesitated, then nodded. Then shook her head. I'm scared, she admitted. The words came out fast, like if she slowed down she wouldn't say them at all. Not of you. Of not knowing how to be with you. Like this. Ashley studied her face with gentle seriousness. Me too, she said. Not in the same way. But still. Asha let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. I don't want to get it wrong. Ashley smiled softly. Then don't try to get it right. Just be here. The kiss this time was unguarded. Not rushed. Not careful. Ashley's hands framed Asha's face, thumbs warm against her skin. Asha responded slowly, letting herself follow instead of led, letting instinct replace fear. They moved together without instruction. Paused. Laughed softly when their foreheads bumped. Adjusted. Listened. When they finally lay down together, it was not with urgency but with reverence. Asha learned with her hands what her mind had feared to ask. Learned through breath and reaction in the quiet language of Ashley's body. Nothing went wrong. That was the miracle. Later, wrapped together in the low light, Ashley traced idle patterns along Asha's arm. You okay? She murmured. Asha smiled into the pillow, grounded in a truth that felt earned. More than okay. Ashley kissed her shoulder, gentle and certain. Life did not turn perfect after that. There were still calls from home. Awkward explanations. Days when fear resurfaced. But there was also morning coffee shared in silence. Grocery lists. Ashley's habit of leaving cabinets open. Asha's laughter filling spaces she once kept quiet. They learned each other slowly. Not as destiny. As choice. Some stories don't end when the moment fades. They stay with us, asking to be felt. What would you choose, if fear no longer spoke louder than truth? If this story awakened something you recognize, you're welcome to share your truth in the comments. And if this journey stayed with you, consider subscribing to Secret Garden Stories and sharing it with someone who might feel seen. Your support helps this space grow. A world with more love, more honesty, and less silence. Thank you for being here.